Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Today I am continuing my efforts to paint my copy of Cursed City using only Army Painter Speedpaints. And I'm trying to work through some of the easy, simple stuff at the moment. In my last video I painted up the bats. This time around we are painting up the rat swarms. But as that's not going to take very long, in this video I'm also going to paint up the little corpse cats and also the diregoyles, which are like little treasure imps. But first, the rats. I have started by priming these with black, and then I have oversprayed them with necrotic flesh from Army Painter. And this is really a little bit more than a zenithal highlight, it's quite a heavy spray, because my idea here is I want the rats to be brown, but I want them to have a sickly green tone, like you're getting hints of rotting flesh showing through the fur. So once those primers are completely dry, I'm going to use dark wood from the Army Painter Speedpaints range, and we're going to paint this all over the fur. To a certain degree I'm going to avoid getting it over the tails because we're going to paint the tails in a different colour, but it doesn't actually matter if there's a little bit of overspill. When you're painting a model like this, something which is supposed to be a seething mass of fur and teeth, you can be a little bit sketchy in how you approach it. It doesn't matter if paints go over each other a little bit. Any overspill or overlap or areas where paint mixes a little bit will just add to the sense that this is a big seething mass of moving bodies, where you would naturally see different shades and tones in the coloration. But the overall intention is to get brown over all the bodies of the rats, and as it dries, hopefully some of that necrotic flesh, that putrid green colour, will start to show through the translucent speed paint, so you will get this greenish brown colour. And then when the brown is dry, I'm just going to use some matte white, also from Army Painter. This isn't a speed paint, but I'm going to use it to put down some highlights on the tail before I apply another speed paint. So this is just a very gentle dry brush of the Army Painter white over the raised parts of the tails, which will just help the speed paint we use to bring out all of the details, and again enable us to get lots of different textures and hues in the paint scheme. And the paint we're going to use for the tails is Crusader Skin because we want it to be a fleshy pinkyish colour. So I'm just going to apply this liberally over all of those tails. Again, if it spills onto the brown areas, that's not a problem, we're just adding different tones and variants in the skin coloration. We are keeping this quite sketchy and freeform, because really, apart from this, we are done. I'm not even going to worry about trying to pick out eyes or teeth or anything like that. The only thing I am going to do is use some pallid bone, and that's because you get 6 rat swarms, 2 each of 3 unique designs, and one of the designs has a skull on it, so we're going to use the pallid bone on that skull. And then it's just a case of basing it up. I'm using texture paint, I'm putting blood red on the base for the champions, and then Steel Legion drab on the bases for the other units. And then I have used quite a lot of static grass, more static grass than I would normally use. I think it helps in this case, because if you look at the way the miniature is sculpted, it's actually 3 rows of rats that you push together. By using the grass to fill the void between those rows, it helps to make it look more like a swarm. You could argue that there wouldn't really be this much grass in the Cursed City, but we can imagine these rats are running through the city park. And honestly, I do think in this case, it does help to tie the miniature together, to help make it look like a fuller base, and to help disguise how many rats are even there. There could always be more lurking in that long grass. But there we go, that's a look at all 3 of the different sculpts for the rat swarms, and we're now moving on to something different. We have a corpse cat, a manky moggy, and for this miniature I have started with a spray undercoat of necrotic flesh, and that's because I really want to try and go for quite a greenish tone on this particular miniature. But there is some exposed bone on this miniature, so before we start using any speed paints we're going back to our matte white, and I'm going to apply matte white over any exposed bones. And that will help when we apply the pallid bone speed paint later on, which looks much better over white than it does over necrotic flesh. We're also going to use the Army Painter white to dot in the eye. Just the one, this poor cat only has one eye. And then once those paints are completely dry, we're using our pallid bone. So this is going to go over the exposed bone in the tail, the exposed backbone. It doesn't go over the eye though. We will be doing something different with the eye. We will actually be making use of the fact that speed paint can reactivate sometimes. And then once our pallid bone is dry, we can use our grim black just to paint the rest of the cat. So this is going to go over all of the fur, all of the skin areas. You can, if you want to, pick the teeth out on the cats. I didn't bother. Again, I'm keeping this quick, I'm keeping this loose. These cats are actually more like tokens rather than miniatures that you put on the board in play anyway, so I think a very quick paint job is good enough. But as I'm applying the black to the skin, I'm also putting it over the eyeball as well that we have painted white. And then afterwards I'm getting a clean brush with some water on it, and I'm going to very carefully move that brush over the eyeball to move the paint back off to reveal the white underneath. I'm doing this while the black is still wet, but because of reactivation you could do this later on after the paint has dried if you want. You just wet your brush, keep applying it to the eyeball, eventually you will smear the black away and reveal the white underneath, and you will end up with quite a milky eyeball that still has nice dark recess shading. And that's that for the speed paints, so we're just going to finish off the base as normal. We're using texture paint there, that's Sterling Mud, Steel Legion Drab on the rim, and then again we're using some static grass. And for a very quick paint job, I think that looks pretty good. As I mentioned, you can, if you want to, do the teeth as well, but I was happy to leave it at this stage. Because we have one other very simple paint job to do. Cursed City includes 2 little diregoyles, cute little imps that run around with treasure chests. And for these I started with an undercoat of Army Painter Matte White. And then I'm using some Army Painter Shining Silver, and I'm going to paint in all of the metal areas on the treasure chest. There's a little padlock and some metal banding around the edge. And this is in preparation for using Army Painter Hardened Leather, which we are going to apply all over the treasure chest, including that shining silver. And you will end up with a nice wood effect on the wooden areas, and you will end up with a nice coppery metal effect on the metal areas. Very simple, very effective. Oh, and by the way, there is also a little coin in the imp's mouth. Don't miss that. I catch it later on and I will paint it at the end. But moving on, for this imp we're going to use the Hive Dweller Purple. Unfortunately, because we get 2 of these miniatures in the box, I can do them in 2 different colours, so this first one is going to be purple, the second one I will be using Grim Black on. And we're just applying this purple over the entire body, over the wings, over the horns, over the eyes and the teeth as well. Just making sure we get good coverage. And then afterwards, I'm going to use the same trick that I used on the cat's eye. I'm going to get a clean brush with some water on it, and I'm going to drag it over the eye until we reveal that milky white colour underneath. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the teeth as well. And then it's just a case of basing him up exactly the same as with all the other miniatures, and I'm pretty happy with that, although I have to say I don't think the Hive Dweller Purple applies as well as some of the other speed paint colours. It feels a little bit streakier and blotchier. Maybe it wasn't quite as well mixed as it could have been. Regardless, he's still a cute little fella. And as I said, I also painted up the second miniature using Grim Black, and I think Grim Black looks really nice over the Army Painter White, and as a result this one is my favourite of the 2. But there we have it, 6 rat swarms, 2 undead cats, and 2 diregoyles, all painted up in very quick order. And that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you've really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.